Bijan, how are you?
Okay. I want to turn this camera off because I'm doing this from a smartphone and this looks horrible. So figure out a way to face the camera.
What do you mean a smartphone?
You can't do YouTube live together from a laptop. So I had to go upstairs and get my phone. No, you can't.
No, you can't. No.
Because when I clicked on it, it said you have to do this from a phone.
That's correct.
Right.
That is correct.
Right. So I'm going to turn the camera off because it looks pitiful.
Oh, you look fine.
No, it doesn't. So I'm just going to figure out where the camera icon is and
Well, if you want, put it on something else. Just you can switch the camera.
I'll just turn it on to neutral.
Yeah, you could do it that way. Sure.
No, you can't do it from a laptop. Not on my end.
No, I know that. I know that. Yeah.
That's why it took me so long to get in the links.
Okay, no problem. I mentioned that to you.
No, you probably told me at first, but it's going to be tricky when we do the one on the 22nd because you have to either hold it or prop it against something that frames your face a certain way. I don't have I can't do it from a laptop.
Yeah, well, you could use books and.
I know, but I'm in the hotel lobby because it's midnight because the Wi-Fi in my room stinks. So.
Oh.
If I were in my room, I could just prop it up against something, but I'm not in my room. I'm downstairs. The Wi-Fi in the
Yeah,
room isn't
I
good.
understand.
The Wi-Fi in my room isn't consistent enough to do it from the room. So I have to
Yeah,
figure
I'd
out.
rather not mention. By the way, I'd rather not mention the reason why Larry had to cancel, but because she told me that in an email. But
Yeah,
I but
you don't have to.
it's yeah, but
Yeah, you don't.
that's these
You don't have to share that publicly. I mean, that's
right. But these things happen,
And we don't have to.
and
We don't have to do that much today. Maybe just a little foundation of how we got interested in some of our thoughts, because we're going to be on in a week anyway.
sure,
I just
sure.
figured since you had already slotted the time and you had a cancellation, maybe.
No, yeah, that's fine. Sure, I'm glad to. I've been a JFK enthusiast ever since I was 5 years old, when I was in kindergarten, and they announced that he was shot, that Kennedy was shot, and my understanding of what has transpired has unfolded through the decades, and brings us here to the 60th anniversary. And I know you've written about the topic of JFK and the assassination. And in particular, you've written on some very, very interesting topics. And I believe you're working on a screenplay about J.D. Tippit. Isn't that a movie?
We hope one day. Yeah, I am writing about that. It's a biopic about Tippit, and it's also a movie that culminates in in his encounter with Oswald. But that's not, that obviously doesn't occur, at least the way I'm writing it, until the end of the movie. So we really get to see who he is, so that he's
Right.
not only a
I
one day.
have I know it's your screenplay, but I just had a vision for the movie. And that is, you tell me what you think. The movie could open up with Oswald coming out of the house and him shooting J.D. Tippit, fatally shooting him, and then it can go back in time.
I actually thought about doing that, since that's what people are most familiar with, and then showing who he was before that moment, and
Right.
not having the actual shooting, but just the beginning of their confrontation, just to get people, just enough
Right.
suspense to where you don't show how it escalated. You just show him pulling over the squad car, and
Right.
then
Yeah.
doing his life, and then at
Right.
the end showing how it went sour.
Right.
So that's actually a pretty good idea, because one, you capture people right from the beginning, and
Exactly.
two, you leave them a cliffhanger of, well, this seems pretty routine. It's just a radio, and half the men in Dallas look like that, and
Right.
there's nothing unusual. And then you go an hour and a half before you revisit that.
That would be good, and in fact, you could hear it. I could imagine the movie opening up, and you see Tibbet in the car, or you actually, it could be a shot within the car, and the radio says, I think they described him as a man in his 30s, a white
Yeah,
man.
yeah, 5'10",
Um,
medium built.
yeah, and then to have him look over and see a man, a
Right,
white man,
right,
and and to see him come out of the car.
right, and to be honest, I mean, everybody would write it different ways, but you could even not show Oswald from the chest up at first. You could just have him walk.
Absolutely.
You could just have
Sure.
him walking from the panes, and Tippett has this, what I consider by Dallas standards, a vague description, because it could fit so many people.
Very vague.
And
It
then you have
covers
somebody
just about
walking.
everybody, every white
Yeah,
guy.
yeah, and you have somebody walking briskly from the panes, and you could give people the sense that a few neighbors. You could give people the sense that they were eyewitnesses,
Sure.
and then something about, the more I listen to Gerald and you, the more I'm thinking it wasn't so much the radio description because that was so opaque. It was more Lee must have done something to arouse suspicion, because you don't just, that could be anybody, you know.
Well, you never know. I don't know. You know, unfortunately, they're
No, I
both
mean
gone.
we won't. But I mean, I've read a
Yeah.
little bit. I've read enough about Tippett's former squad car partners and fellow officers, and how he once, I think he once, just on some kind of hunch that was particular to his keen observation, I don't know if it was a bookie or somebody that he pulled over or stopped on the street. He might not have even been in a car in this instance. And it led to a person having been.
This is Tibbet.
It led to the arrest of an offender, but the offender did something. The offender wasn't in the act of committing the crime that Tippett arrested him for. The offender just did something that made Tippett think that he.
Right. There was a warrant out for his arrest. Is that so?
Not even that. It's just that the person did something that Tippett, just because of the way police think, they think everybody is a crook, and they're looking for signs of suspicion and signs of guilt and signs of nervousness and signs of discomfort. So
yeah,
I forgot. I have to go back into my notes about his life, but he had a
well,
he had a
I
partner.
never heard of that. That's a very good anecdote.
Yeah, he had a partner, I guess, that might have been like a squad car partner.
Yeah.
And he said he walked up to somebody once that I wouldn't have necessarily, he didn't say that I wouldn't necessarily stop, but a person who was otherwise not suspicious looking, and it led to booking somebody that it was actually kind of a serious criminal, but
So
the
in other
person
words,
wasn't in the act.
so once he stopped him, he called in his and they looked him up, and then they saw there was a warrant.
Right. There wasn't that the person was doing that particular crime at that moment. It was this something that they did that was off.
Right.
Just like, the only analogy I can think of is when Wayne Williams got pulled over and it led to the arrest for the Atlanta child murders. Wayne Williams was doing something that drew the attention of the police. He wasn't murdering a child. And I think that happened with
Son of Sam.
The son of Sam. I think.
There you go.
They pulled him over because his something automobile related.
I think he was illegally parked.
It was either that or he was driving without a tail light. It was something like that.
And they looked him up, and then they looked in the car, and I believe they saw a gun.
A 44, yeah.
Yeah.
And he probably acted nervous too, because Falco wasn't in his right.
I was still living in New York. It was the first summer of my freshman year at Boston University. So I was back staying with my parents in Long Island, and it happened like 1 in the morning or 2 in the morning.
Yeah, it was an overnight news
and I
thing.
woke my parents up. It was that important. I said, they got him. I'll never forget it.
Because you were local. Yeah,
and
because
my parents jumped out of bed, both of them, and they were very glad to hear it.
Yeah. But anyway, in both of those instances, the thing that the person did, they weren't in the act of committing their act. Yeah.
Right.
But I think, you pointed out panic, and Gerald alluded to panic and sort of snap. And I guess I'm always looking at it from Tippett's end, but the more you look at it from Lee's mindset, and God knows who can figure out Lee because he's such an enigma, but the more you look at it from his mindset, even though the stop should be there is a lot of adrenaline. You have just killed one person. You have your revolver. You don't want the person to find your revolver. You don't necessarily want the person to know that you work at the book. You don't want
also, you don't want the person to know that you're the shooter. So
no, but I mean, you don't even want the person to know.
Let's just assume he actually did it, which you and I do. That in itself, he may have suspected that they had something on him, you know.
Right, because and also remember, he's also shot at Major General Edwin Walker, so he doesn't know what the police,
That's right.
So, and it's the same weapon. So,
yeah,
if you're pulled up, I'm always looking at it as like, did Tippett say something that made? But Tippett didn't have to do much to make him nervous, because he would have been nervous even if he hadn't run into Tippett.
Exactly.
We don't know where he was going.
Exactly.
He wasn't going to the Texas Theater. We don't know.
I'm not sure if he knew where he was going.
I doubt it, because I don't think he took the money he left Marina.
Okay.
And he didn't make a lot. So even if he gets a bus to Mexico and it doesn't cost a lot, he didn't make a lot. He didn't have enough to live off for 2 or 3 weeks on the run, because he left Marina. He left Marina almost everything he had to his name.
Yeah.
So one, that leads me to think he did it, because why take your wedding band off and leave it on the dresser? And a poor man with a menial job in a menial warehouse. Why would you leave $240-something to your wife?
Not only that, I don't know where he got the money to do all his traveling to Cuba to not
Well,
Cuba.
in those days, Jeffrey, I mean, if you factor for inflation, we're talking about it now, but in those days, those things.
Well, he took buses, I assume.
Yeah, those are long.
Still, I don't know how he managed to be living in New Orleans and take. I don't know.
Yeah, because I mean, even when he worked in the photo retouching lab, that's not a very well paying. But I guess if you scrimp and save, I mean, before they had. So if Junie was about 3, that means they had her in 60. So he was already a father, so he had that expense.
Right.
Marina was pregnant again, I think, when he shot the president. So
I don't even know if he was paying her anything for child support. I don't know.
Well, who was paying her rent at the Paynes?
I believe, now I'm just guessing. I think Ruth Payne let her stay there for nothing.
You would almost have to think so, because Lee had his own rent in
a boarding house
where he lived. Yeah.
So I really don't know.
It might have, because I think they were interested in Russian.
But this this little conversation has prepared me, and I hope you, for the one we're going to happen on the 60th anniversary.
Yeah, it seems like we know a lot about the case. Yeah. I mean, I don't know how many nerds there are, because most of the nerds would be boomers who it either happened while they were young, or while they were a little older, or while they were an adult. And people that were born after maybe 75 or 78 or 80. I'm not saying the Kennedys don't loom large in their lives, and they don't know about Teddy, and they don't know about John Jr., and they don't know about Jackie O, but if your whole adult life was lived, even if your entire childhood was lived when this was 20 years or 30 years behind us, I don't know if you would take the time, unless you were like an assassination buff, and I don't even like that word because it's a murder, but an assassination amateur researcher, to make yourself familiar with this many aspects of it.
I just froze. Can you hear me?
Yeah, now I can, and I can actually see you.
Yeah, you know what it is? I keep getting these alerts from Fort Lauderdale about the flooding, and it's not even that big. I've seen much worse. But anyway,
Well,
Think about this. Think about this. 1865, Lincoln was assassinated. Throw 60 years on that. It's 1925. Babe Ruth was on the Yankees and in his prime.
Right.
And it was the modern era. Okay.
Who's the president? Coolidge, or was it Harding?
Coolidge.
Yeah. But maybe I should take back what I said about not having
actually, I think Hoover.
Couldn't have been Hoover yet.
No, you're right. You're right. It's Coolidge. These were amazing times, and I wonder how many people would be into the Lincoln assassination. I think less and less people.
That makes me retract what I said, because you have Lincoln assassination buffs, and it obviously occurred well before their childhood. So I think you could.
True.
I don't like. I'm going to get away from.
Aren't those historians largely historians?
Yeah, and I'm going to get away from the term buff because it's a murder. So I'm not a fan of the fact that Kennedy got killed that day. I don't like the word buff.
Right. But
I'm a person
that have some people who study history and will remember it's like the Holocaust. We have
but even everybody that's our age doesn't necessarily have the same interest in it as we do. For instance,
no, but they
don't know as many. They don't know as many of the players. They don't know as many of the arcane facts.
That's true.
They don't know what the Stemmons Freeway is. They don't know who Roy Truly is. So even if you're 64, 65, or 66, and even people that are much older than I, don't necessarily have that to go out and buy books, to watch don't have that. So I think some of it is, well, one of it is, are you a history buff in general? And two, I think how you felt in the moment and how you felt that moment changed the rest of your life and the rest of the life of the country impacted how curious you were about what brought it on.
Yeah. And I would say, it's not only in the moment, because for me, sure, I remember the moment when it was announced that he was shot, but I was only 5, and it was in subsequent years, the unfolding of it in my.
That's what I mean. That's what I mean. It's not just how you felt in that moment. It's how you felt as Nixon beats Humphrey and his 72 and his 69 Chappaquiddick and the moon landing, which he said in 1 decade, and they actually did it in a decade.
Yeah.
All these stuff, how long we were in Vietnam, how all these subsequent things play out because he's not around, or because he initiated them, or because there's a Peace Corps, or because there's this, or because Sergeant Shriver did this, or this. So there's all these things that sort of harken back to when he was physically alive.
Listen, I got to run in just a few minutes because I'm doing another broadcast at 2.
Yeah, you have the baseball. You have
baseball
the ball
game. Yeah. I hope
at least we kind of did our little.
I was gonna leave you with this. I don't know that you're one into speculating about the what if it never happened, but it is
the biggest what if Ruby doesn't shoot him. There's a trial, but yeah.
Yeah, I think one of the things might have been if Ruby didn't shoot him and there's a trial, I think he would have been convicted, and I think that
and there wouldn't be conspiracy theorists.
Well, there'd be less.
Well, far less, because with no Ruby shooting, there's this testimony that goes on and on. And I always, when I started writing and I'll let you go for the game. When I started writing the Tippett screenplay, it dawned on me how many famous people would have probably been called to be witnesses, even maybe Jackie, and even some of the Secret Service, and maybe even Nellie.
Supposedly Ruby said to someone he was
that
close
the reason
to,
he shot. Yeah.
I don't want her to have to come back to Dallas and testify.
That's what he said. Yeah. And she could have gotten out of it because she was a former first lady, but she would have been called.
Right. I really would love to see that movie about Tippett. Do you have a working title?
Yes. So it's called A Texas Tragedy, The Ballad of J.D. Tippett.
Wow. Well, that's pretty powerful.
Interesting life too. We'll get into that when I come on
Yeah.
the 20th.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it, and I'm going to make a few notes today about what we spoke about, so that I know a few bookmarks of things to bring up. And I'm looking forward to talking to you at noon Eastern time. You've already turned the clocks, or you don't turn the clocks?
We don't, but because you guys did, I'm now not 11 ahead of you. I'm now 12 because you guys go back.
So, what time is it there now?
1:45.
1:45. Okay, so you're exactly 12 hours ahead
Yeah,
of us.
and that's because the Eastern went back one, so that makes it 12.
So
it would have been
it'll be midnight for you when we do this, and you're okay with that?
Yeah, that's fine because it's slow.
It really doesn't matter to me. It's nice to do it
No,
at
actually,
12.
that's the best time to do it because if worst case scenario, because I won't be in my apartment until the 28th. Worst case scenario, if I have to come to the lobby will be abandoned.
Oh, okay.
Whereas if we did it any earlier, there'd be people getting on and off the elevator.
Okay, good.
Front desk would be talking to people and they'd be background.
You know, by the way, this time zone difference works out a little for me because I've had some sleep disturbance and I've woken up at 1 in the morning and I just get up. And who's tweeting? Or you?
Yeah, because it's only the following day for me.
And it's some good tweets too. So that was sort of a good thing for me to be able to take advantage of that. Well, it was great talking to you, and it's going to be actually.
It's a good dry run.
Yeah, and it'll be a week from yesterday when we get.
You guys are not on Friday yet. Oh, it doesn't fall on a Friday this year.
No.
It falls on like a Wednesday.
It's
okay.
On a Wednesday. It'll be Thursday in where you are.
Right.
Okay.
I'll let you go to the 69 Royals.
Actually, we have California and Baltimore.
Oh yeah, Fregosi. Good deal.
Yeah, for a doubleheader, and this is a form of deep play for me. It's about relaxation, and I've built a very nice little community on YouTube enjoying these games.
That was great. Great. I didn't really follow the game that closely that year. I picked it up more the following year, but I did watch the World Series that year because I was in a new school that was all boys.
Yeah.
And the teacher brought in everybody in America always says this, but the teacher rolled in a portable TV on wheels and let the boys watch some of the Orioles and the Mets because there were no night games.
Right. I remember there were no night games, and I used to have a transistor radio with an earphone in my ear, and I would sit in the back of the class.
So you and I are of the age that we saw the first night game in the World Series, and Bruce Keeson was the starter.
Yeah,
Bruce Keeson.
I remember that perfectly well. It was the '71 series.
Yep, Bruce Keeson.
We could talk about baseball too sometime.
It's funny because he's known as a reliever.
Well,
he started the first World Series night game ever, but he never really.
That's what confused me because I thought of him as a reliever, but I think you're right. He did start, but no one.
Yeah, he never really became a part of their rotation. He was a reliever.
And does anyone remember who started for the Orioles?
No. It's funny how I don't remember who started for the other team, but the reason I remember him is because he was new and he was a rookie and he did it.
Well, I remember it specifically because I remember actually seeing him warming up on the mound at the beginning of the game, and I think it was in Pittsburgh.
That might have been why I remember him too, because they played the night game in Three Rivers, not in Memorial.
Yeah, and it made an impression on me as far as seeing him on the mound warming.
I think another reason why I remember him and not the other starters is because the other four starters were famous for other things, so it could have been any of them. Whereas he was a rookie.
The year they had. That was the year they had 4 20-game winners.
Right, so it's hard for me to pick that night out and say, well, who of those four? Yeah. Whereas, like you say, it was in Pittsburgh, number one. It was a rookie, number two, and he was so skinny that you always remembered who it was.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'll let you go to it, and we will talk. We'll probably have to talk a little bit before the 22nd, just to housekeeping, but I'll talk to you then.
My pleasure, as always, and I'm looking forward to that movie.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Okay.
We'll talk soon.
Take care.
All right. Thanks for the dry run.
Yes, sir.